Okay. So welcome everyone to our webinar on community college entrepreneurship education. We are here with the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship, or NACE. We're going to have a quick intro about what National Entrepreneurship Week is, and then I'm going to throw it over to them to begin their conversation.
Welcome to National Entrepreneurship Week. My name is Joe Kapp.
And I'm Amber Ravenscroft.
5 years ago, we relaunched National Entrepreneurship Week, a congressionally chartered annual event to support and uplift America's new business startups. Originally founded in 2006, National Entrepreneurship Week takes place every year during the third week of February.
All across the United States, from Maui to Miami to Maine and everywhere in between, America's entrepreneurial ecosystem is vibrant and thriving. National Entrepreneurship Week celebrates the unmatched, innovative American spirit that has brought to life amazing products and services and includes a beautiful tapestry of diverse entrepreneurs.
During the week, you'll hear from a host of United States federal agencies as they share information on their entrepreneurship and small business programs. You'll also hear from a nationwide network of partners, including entrepreneurial educators, ecosystem builders, and most importantly, entrepreneurs from all walks of life as they participate in the excitement of National Entrepreneurship Week.
Join in celebrating National Entrepreneurship Week by organizing an event in your local community, listening in on one of our national webinars, or participating in our annual social media campaign.
There has never been a better time to start a new business, and we challenge you to unleash your ideas into action during National Entrepreneurship Week.
National Entrepreneurship Week is made possible by contributions from an array of generous partners.
The views and opinions expressed in National Entrepreneurship Week programs are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of National Entrepreneurship Week, its agents, or any U.S. government agency. Any agency's participation or support is not an endorsement of any product, service, or entity. All liability with respect to any recommendations are hereby expressly disclaimed.
Great. So with that, I want to welcome everyone to our 2 o'clock webinar, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Rebecca Corbin, who is the president and CEO of NACE, to get us started.
Great. And before we do that, Erica Burfield, did you just have a couple of comments to make?
I do. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Can you see the full screen of that title slide there? Did I share it correctly?
Need to swap it out, Erica.
Swap it. All right. Let's see here. How about now?
Perfect.
Great. Awesome. Well, great. So thank you so much for joining us today for the National Entrepreneurship Week. My name is Erica. I am the Partnership and Events Project Manager for NACE. So just a few quick housekeeping notes before we get started. So use the chat. We'd love to hear and see you engage there. So I'd love to see you post where you're joining from, maybe your name. And if you're joining us live on Facebook, post those in the comments as well. So if you're here on Zoom, do utilize that Q&A tab for questions that you might have. And then we have polls later today. So if you are here on Zoom, please do engage with those joining us on Facebook. Just utilize that comment area. And with that, I'm happy to welcome and introduce Dr. Rebecca Corbin, who is our president and CEO of NACE, as well as Katie Gales, the senior director for members and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So with that, Becky, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Erica. And I just want to congratulate Joe Kapp and Amber Ravenscroft for being fabulous co-chairs. They always include us, and we're very, very grateful for that. So welcome to National Entrepreneurship Week Higher Ed Day, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. And I'd like to begin just with a quote. I was thinking about Valentine's Day, and I thought about how do you fall in love with your life? And my answer to that is, and I hope I can convince you along with my colleague, Katie Gales, one way you can fall in love with your life is really by adopting an entrepreneurial mindset. And I'm going to share with you a little bit of how to do that. But first of all, let's begin. Helen Keller once said, "The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be touched. They must be felt with the heart." And I think that that's a wonderful place to begin, because those of you who have been walking this entrepreneurial journey with me and with others for the last 8 years, at least in my case, really understand that empathy is really sort of the birthplace, we think, to creativity and innovation and collaboration. So with that, I wanted to share with you 3 brief objectives that my colleagues and I are going to try to achieve today, if we're lucky. So first of all, we want you to start to think maybe a little more differently. I think a lot of you on the call already are part of the entrepreneurship space, so you probably think this way, but I still would challenge you to do our second objective, which is to take action. And maybe you are already entrepreneurial in your professional life. How might you take what you do in your professional life and apply it to your relationships, apply it to your community? The third item that we really want to focus on is using new language. And one of the things that we say a lot in NACCE world is using the phrase, how might we? And you'll notice I focused in on the we. I didn't say me, I didn't say I. And that's purposely because what we want to do in any kind of entrepreneurial endeavor is think about ourselves as really the agents of change. But if we want to go fast, as they say, let's go together. If we want to go, if we want to go far, we go together. If we want to go fast, sometimes we go by ourselves. So my position is that part of National Entrepreneurship Week is really us embracing each other. So to that end, many of you might know this already, but National Entrepreneurship Week was congressionally chartered in 2006. It's always the 3rd week of February. And it really focuses on diversity, education, inclusion, equity, and collaboration. And so those are the themes that we're going to talk in a bit about with my colleague, Katie Gales. But what I want to talk to you a little bit about is, for those who may not be familiar with NACCE, who we are and where we're going. We are very future focused by design, and how we believe that we're going to accomplish what our purpose is in the world is really through a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mindset. So NACCE itself, as we call ourselves, is 20 years old. So we are no longer teenager. So we are now grown up, and we are becoming a much more mature organization. One of our purpose points is really defining who we are and what value that we bring into the community. And we do that through 3 C's. So Corbin is telling you the 3 C's of NACCE. The first one is co-creation. So just as I mentioned a minute ago, when we talk about going far together, if we want to go far together, we're not hiding our accomplishments. We're not trying to think about how we can compete with one another. What we're thinking about is, how might we compete together? How might we take important things like pedagogy and things like that, or experiential learning, and how can we make it better? How can I reach out to a colleague in California and connect them to a colleague in Kentucky, and connect them to a student who is really the customer, right? And come up with really innovative solutions to problems. The second C that Corbin is sharing is collaboration. And collaboration is not easy. I will tell you, and you all know this already, it's very messy, it's very imperfect, but it's very necessary. And it's what we believe is really the way that you achieve some of these diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging objectives. And then the last one is celebration, which is what we are all doing across the country and really across the world, which is not only celebrating entrepreneurial endeavors that are hugely successful, but it's really lifting up every single one of you and our friends and family members and colleagues around the world that get out there every day and try. Those of us who make mistakes, sometimes publicly, I've done it, and it's humbling, right? But I have to remind myself, and you all have to remind yourselves, and we all have to remind each other that if we are not stumbling at times, we are probably not risking enough. We're not going far enough. So I want to, before I bring my colleague, Katie Gales, in with me to the stage, I want to just set the framework for what we have been doing with everything that NACCE does, which is in a sort of a theoretical practice called effectuation. And many of you know it well and can explain it well, but I'm going to remind people that may not be familiar with it. This is what effectuation is. And what it is you begin, and I'm going to give you a little bird here. you begin with your bird in hand. So you might want to have things around you that remind you of effectuation. It reminds you of people that are cheering for you. They might be silly things that remind you not to take yourself so seriously. So the first thing any entrepreneur, whether you're in higher ed or not, wants to look at is your bird in hand. So if you look at your student, and we've all had students, maybe your student has a challenge. And if you lean too much into the challenge, you might be missing what opportunities they have, what strengths do they have. Same thing goes with business. Same thing goes with community development. You might have a great business opportunity. If you're not leaning in and looking for your bird in hand, you might miss it. So that is bird in hand. The second principle is affordable loss. So being here with you today, we have to determine, are we passionate enough about entrepreneurship to take an hour out of our busy day and to be here and to share with you knowledge that we think will be beneficial in your life. And anytime you're looking at risk or affordable loss, whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's talent, what you want to do is really take small bets. So maybe if you're new to Zoom, you're new to the presentation world, maybe you start with presenting to your family and friends, a friendly audience, and then you're going to go out a little bit further and take some more risks. So a bird in hand, affordable loss. The third principle of effectuation is the crazy quilt principle. And I love this principle. I know some of you do as well. And really the idea is, and it goes right to the diversity piece, is that you want to co-create and collaborate with people who are different from you. So to that extent, we have to be intentional by design. If I am only co-creating and collaborating with people that are similar to myself, that have a similar life experience, lived experience, educational background, my end result is not going to be as robust. It is certainly not going to be as inclusive unless I reach out and start to create this crazy quilt, which might be people who they might be different ages, different experiences. So the fourth principle is the lemonade principle, which we all know that very well, especially during the pandemic. How many of us have made little blunders, right? Or big blunders as we have tried to navigate this world of technology. So the principle of lemonade is truly, embrace failure and experimentation as part of the process. And I always say to my staff, I welcome people making mistakes. We try not to make lots and lots of mistakes, but the main thing is we don't keep on making the same mistake, right? So we've got our bird in hand, we've got our affordable loss, we have our crazy quilt, we have our lemonade principle. The final principle is pilot in the plane. So what that means is I really have to lean into the data. So what does a pilot do? He looks at the dials, or she looks at the dials in the plane. What does that data focus on? What does it tell you? What does it speak to you? And you need to act on it. So you're not going to be, gazing out the window, not paying attention to what opportunity is in front of you. So that is how we enter in the spirit of celebrating National Entrepreneurship Week through those principles. And one of the things that I'm delighted to do at this point is to welcome one of my newest NACCE colleagues to the stage, who literally just moved down the hall to join us full-time on our staff. She's got a very robust background, which I'm going to let her tell you about, and we're going to have a little chat. So Katie Gales, I am so thrilled that you are part of NACCE full-time now. You were one of our champions before, but now we have you all the time. And I would like to begin by you sharing with us a little bit about your background. It's pretty rich, so you'll have to do sort of the high-level version. And then I want you to talk to us about why, in your opinion, entrepreneurship is so important.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Corbin. I'm so excited to be part of NACCE. My 10th day on the job. Everybody celebrate. I already knew a lot about NACCE because as a former director of entrepreneurship initiatives at Wake Tech, I used all the resources and benefits of NACCE that I could, and it really made a difference in my community. And you're going to hear from some people from my entrepreneurship community a little bit later, but I will tell you that I spent the first half of my career in corporate America supporting small businesses. And then the next half of my career, I spent actually either being a small business owner or directly interacting with small businesses and supporting them. And I didn't realize until I got out there on my own that I had grown up around all these entrepreneurs. There was, in my neighborhood, everybody had a little side hustle, a little something they did on the side. Some people had a full-time hustle, and they were all entrepreneurs, but we didn't have the fancy word for it. So entrepreneurship is so important to us because it's really more about recognizing opportunity and being in control of your own destiny. That's why entrepreneurship is important. That's why everybody ought to embrace it either as a mindset or as a way of generating income for your family. So I am very passionate about that because I have seen that entrepreneurship, just changing a mindset, can cause people to find more opportunity in their lives, even when they're not starting a business. But definitely, if they're starting a business, entrepreneurship training and information can be the difference between success and failure, or just stumbling along and not being able to retire after 30 years, or being able to really establish a legacy. So I'm passionate about it. I'm an entrepreneurship fan. I live and breathe it all the time. And I also live and breathe diversity, because of all the programs that I've created in my former position at Wake Tech, 70% of the entrepreneurs that we served were minorities and or women.
Right, and that's where you know you're on the right track, because Katie is, her pilot in the plane is really looking at the data and looking at the impact. And I would say too, Katie, you and I became colleagues and friends a lot, talking on the evenings, on the weekends, because this is not just a job for us. It is our hobby. You have golf enthusiasts, and then you have people like us that love to wake up in the morning and think about how can we co-create new opportunities for people. And I think you're absolutely right when you talk about, really thinking about how can you more deeply embed this in your life. And you had mentioned your role. So obviously you're part of the senior executive team at NACCE, and looking at the membership lens, which we want to bring more colleges and historically Black colleges into our membership, expand the base of the hundreds and hundreds of colleges that we have now. And part of the way that I heard your vision of doing this is through diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So talk about that piece of where you see your job headed, and maybe a few things that you might recommend to people on this call if they really want to learn more about this DEI and B space, or even a sample activity that you did recently at a conference that we were at together to try to highlight people's understanding of how do we make our colleagues aware.
Yeah, so words are so important. And sometimes we use words so much in society that they lose their meaning and people become numb to them. So that word diversity is one of those that we become numb to what it really means. But diversity really means looking around and everybody does not look like you, does not act like you, does not have the same income level or educational level or cultural background or speak the same language or gender identity. It's about really in making sure you're embracing everybody in the community. And equity is making sure that all those people have equal access to opportunities and to programs. But then inclusion is, well, you're here. Well, are you respected? So if we have all the people in the room, everybody has access to opportunity, everybody's respected, the outcome is belonging. And belonging is a sense of feeling comfortable that this space was meant for me.
Right. And Katie, we've all been in that situation where you feel like you don't belong. And I've been there. I mean, honestly, before I joined NACCE, I felt like these are my people. I felt like a bit of an outlier because the things that I would think about sometimes and the things that were important to me and thinking about how might we change this, how might we make this better was not a common language of other people. And so I think what is going to be really important as we move forward is really getting language where people can adapt that to their own communities. I know also that you are actively working in the state of Tennessee to try to engage a project. I know it's in the nascent stages, but maybe you could share just a little bit about what that initiative looks like.
So even though NACCE, the word phrase community college is in the name of NACCE, NACCE also serves other types of institutions. And so what we're trying to do in Tennessee is see how we can combine the power of a community college, an HBCU, and a technical college to share best practices, learn from each other, and create a stronger diversity culture with all of them. So that's something we hope to replicate across the country.
Yeah, and that's, really the beauty of NACCE, right? We, because we're co-creating, we create new things, we test them, we expand them and then we scale them, which is pretty exciting work. I know we are running short on time, but I do want you to speak a little bit about the volunteer part of your life, where you created, sort of in the vein of a social entrepreneurship, a new initiative which focused on conversations about race. So I want you to share that with people, because I think it's a beautiful beginning of something that could have national impact.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yes. In July of 2020, during the pandemic, my co-founder and I tested out a process of getting people together in small, intimate conversations, facilitated conversations about race, where we would have 5 white people, 5 non-whites, go on a guided tour of an exploration about their personal experience with race, because people relate to stories. It's called Our Stories, Brave Conversations on Race. We wanted to do something that wouldn't be the standard equity conversation with a bunch of PowerPoints that everybody attends in a corporate environment. They check the box, they go back to their lives unchanged. We wanted to do something that would change hearts and minds. And so far, we've taken over 200 people. I forgive my Kathleen Sullivan voice. I have a cold. I might keep it though, I kind of like it. But what we've seen is that it changes lives, it changes hearts and minds. And that's how we change the trajectory of race relations in our country. We've had over 200 people go through. We've got 3 chapters. We've got 2 chapters opening up. So we know that this model works, and we look forward to scaling it across the country. It'll take a lot of time because we're only doing it 10 people at a time. So
you might be surprised, Katie, with your energy. I have a feeling it's going to take off. And I think what you said there too, you talked about hearts and minds. So that's where we began at the beginning. And I was thinking about gratitude, and I was reading in the chat that Kevin Drum is on this call, and it warms my heart, because for those of you who don't know him or know about the history of NACCE 20 years ago, he was a college president that saw the value in an organization like this and really the possibility of entrepreneurship. So Kevin, thank you for being here. Thank everybody who has joined us today for that. And Katie, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. We've literally only just begun, and I will not sing to spare everybody from that. You've only been on staff for 2 weeks, but you have a great passion. So you'll be hearing a lot more from Katie. And at this point, Erica's put back up the slide, but what we did in October of 2021, it's hard to even keep track of what year it is, but we had a future building summit. And so one of the things that we did there was feature a number of different things, but also clips from our podcast, Forward with NACCE. So we are going to share one of those with everyone right now.
Yeah, it reminds me hearing you talk about, what you measure matters. And I know you all do a lot, and entrepreneurship can be very difficult to measure, but you're in so many different areas. You mentioned climate change and volunteerism and other things. And I think it must make your shareholders and your team and everyone feel good about the impact that you're making, and particularly during the pandemic, because I think you mentioned that a moment ago. It's challenged everyone, but the work that we do together, the work that NACCE tries to put forward, is really looking at challenges, opportunity in ways that we could never have imagined. And we've had some conversations with that over time. But one of the things that I've noticed about your team, and I see it in our NACCE team too, is that sense of resiliency and the willingness to kind of lean in when we don't exactly know what we're doing, but we're trying to be helpful and we're trying to co-create. And I was thinking it would be a wonderful way to share with our audience maybe some ways that you've made your way forward through the pandemic, some of the things that you've done internally to make sure that your team is cared for and that you all continue to do the excellent work that you're doing.
Yeah, as I think about kind of how the pandemic has ultimately impacted me and those that I serve, I kind of think about it both personally and professionally. And when I think about kind of how I made my way through it, personally, first I've really tried to take advantage of not having to spend so much time on the road traveling. by safely spending more time with kind of family and close friends, as well as kind of reconnecting with some friends that I lost track of. And I also spent a lot of time focusing on my health, which included, picking up the game of golf, which at times I don't know how healthy that gets so frustrated, but at any rate, it allowed me to do something safe with friends on a regular basis, but also spent a lot of time working out more on a regular basis. And finally, I think that I've learned, over the course of the last 2 years now, to have a much stronger work-life balance, which I believe has made me actually better at both. But professionally, I've really tried to do my best to help my team navigate, such a dramatic shift in how we work and support those that we serve. And, I've also learned to try and really take time in each of my one-on-ones in particular that I have, to really just check in and ask how they're doing personally before moving on and discussing kind of the business projects, and really just to try to understand where I could be supportive if they are struggling, whether it's personally or professionally. And so, some of the ways that, I've tried to at least do that is supporting tools, that we now use on a regular basis, to collaborate virtually, like Mural, trying to take advantage of having to use video conference tools like Zoom to actually be more of an inclusive leader, and trying to role model the need to get away from our computers and get out and do walking meetings, as well as take advantage of opportunities to just take time off and recharge. So those are some of the things that I've been doing and have learned through the pandemic.
Thank you to Dave Zazada, who is the Vice President at Intuit, for that and for his real passion for this space. I can tell you that our podcast was our pandemic project. The Corbin family adopted a puppy that's still a work in progress. And the Nacy family adopted this podcast, which I'm thrilled to tell you we're now in 550 American cities and over 41 countries. So we've published, I think at this point, 60 episodes. So we're repurposing that content. We're learning more about how do we share this information. So thank you. I encourage all of you to sign up for a podcast. I would love it if you follow me on Twitter. I'd love to follow you back so we can stay connected in that way. And at this point, I want to share with you a really exciting speaker that we're going to hear from, Senator Amy Klobuchar, that many of you know and have followed. She was a presidential candidate in the last Democratic primary and has really been an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Her office worked with us on this Future Building Summit that the Kauffman Foundation sponsored, and she delivered a very heartfelt message and is grateful for our work. We're grateful for her work, and we just wanted to celebrate that right out of the gate, the first official work day of National Entrepreneurship Week.
Hello to everyone attending the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship's Future Building Summit. A big thank you to Dr. Rebecca Corbin for inviting me today. I want to acknowledge Dr. Sharon Pierce, the president of Minneapolis Community and Technical College, Dr. Ron Thomas, the former president of Dakota County Technical College, and Elaine Marshall. Hi, Elaine. Well, maybe she's not on right now, but I know Elaine, the North Carolina Secretary of State. I am so glad to be part of your annual conference. This year's theme, Entrepreneurship in America's Heartland, could not be more timely. I want to recognize the work that your organization has done to support community college students during this incredibly challenging period. Through unprecedented times, you all banded together, virtually of course, to provide students with the resources and opportunities they need to continue working toward their futures and launching their careers. As a co-chair of the Senate Entrepreneurship Caucus, I'm invested in ensuring the economy we pass down to the next generation is one in which they will be able to get ahead. That means focusing on a competitive agenda for America, because America is at its best when we are a country that thinks, that invents, that makes stuff, that exports to the world. And key to achieving this competitive agenda is prioritizing education. To me, community colleges are launching pads for opportunity, for bold new ideas that will make a permanent mark on our world. I know it from my own personal life. My grandpa worked 1,500 feet underground in the iron ore mines in northern Minnesota. He never graduated from high school, but he saved money in a coffee can in the basement to send my dad to college. My dad graduated from a community college, Vermilion Community College, which was then known as Ely Junior College, and he then went on and got a journalism degree from the University of Minnesota. He went on to be a nationally renowned sports writer and newspaper columnist, and it all started with his 2-year degree. My mom was a public teacher who taught 2nd grade until she was 70 years old. I learned the value of education from my parents and grandparents. That's why I support making community college for 1- and 2-year degrees and certifications tuition free. By the way, my sister also went to a community college. She hadn't graduated from high school like a number of kids, and she ended up getting her GED and then going to 2-year, and then eventually got her 4-year degree. So I lived this, and I've seen the change that it's made in people's lives. With more funding for community college, entrepreneurships, and skills training, we can tear down financial barriers for workers who are beginning or transitioning into new careers. Laying the groundwork for different paths to success isn't about lowering standards for new employees. It addresses a very real problem in our economy that I hear all over Minnesota, the skills gap. Simply put, there are employees who want jobs, and there are employers who need employees with the skills to fill the jobs they have. We're going to have over 100,000 openings for nursing assistants and 60,000 openings for electricians. We're not going to have a shortage of sports marketing degrees. We're going to have a shortage of plumbers. We need to do more to address both the skills gap and the opportunity gap in the long run. By the way, I don't have a problem with sports marketing degrees. I just like to point out that we got to make sure that we look at a lot of these 1- and 2-year degrees and how they actually feed into jobs we have available today and tomorrow. We know there are smart, hardworking people in every corner of our country, and we must invest in them. This investment is not only good for workers, it's good for our entire economy. A 2019 study by the Midwest Economic Policy Institute found that every dollar spent on entrepreneurship programs in Minnesota increases our GDP by $21. And by making sure these programs are open and accessible to women and people of color, we can also create more equity in our workforce. And by the way, we need the workers. We need women and people of color to be going into careers that maybe they would not have picked in the past, some of these high-paying trades jobs. And the only way you do it is by being mentors and by making
Entrepreneurship Week. My name is Joe Capp.
And I'm Amber Ravenscroft.
5 years ago, we relaunched national
on several bills to help workers access entrepreneurship, skills training, apprenticeships. And the way I see it, this legislation goes hand in hand with my bills to support small businesses and promising startups, because lifting up our workforce means focusing on the long-term creation of good-paying jobs. Today's new ideas and side projects are tomorrow's booming businesses, and it will be our nation's students who lead the way. By promoting and fostering entrepreneurship education, your efforts have already made a big difference. But working together, we will continue to invest in community college and skills training and ensure our economy is prepared to welcome the next generation of entrepreneurs. I'm glad to be your partner in Washington, fighting to make sure our workforce has the tools that we need to succeed in the 21st century. Thank you, everyone.
Those are great words from Senator Klobuchar. I loved her perspective on how entrepreneurship education is kind of levels the diversity playing field. There is no place that's closer to the community from a higher education perspective than community colleges. And because of that, community colleges are the ideal champions for diversity in the community. So let's talk a little bit more. This is Higher Ed Day of National Entrepreneurship Week, and we're going to explore entrepreneurship education in community colleges. And there are two perspectives that we want to share with you. One perspective is from the credit perspective or curriculum perspective, where if you're integrating entrepreneurship training into what you're doing at the community college, you can infuse it or insert it into existing classes. In that case, the students don't have any choice. They have to get the entrepreneurship training when they get everything else. And the other perspective is when experienced business people and entrepreneurs say, I need something more, I need some entrepreneurship training, and they choose to come get the training. And we've got speakers from both perspectives. The first speaker is the founder of the Wake Tech Barber School, who, and he'll tell you a little bit more about this in his video, who chose 5 years ago to make sure that his students got more entrepreneurship training in his curriculum. And he went above and beyond the requirements of the state barber school licensing board to make sure that they had what they needed to run a successful barbershop business, not just be a successful barber. So we're going to hear from Mr. William Graham right now.
Hello, my name is William Graham, and I have been a licensed barber stylist since 1994. I currently own and operate my own barber studio downtown, thriving downtown Raleigh, called Glenwood South Barber Studio. I've also designed and founded Wake Tech Community College Barber Program back in 2015. So when designing the program, I knew I wanted a business component piece. I knew I wanted our students not only to know how to cut good hair, but also to know how to run a good business. And so while trying to decide on how I wanted to infuse this business piece into our program while designing it, the college website had a featured article of Miss Katie Gills and her entrepreneurship initiatives, which was coming to our small business center. And I knew right there when I read her bio and I read the article, that was who I needed to get in contact with. And it was heaven sent. So over the years, we had to massage it a little bit, try to find our sweet spot. And we did. We found that the 10-week, 20-hour program was ideal for our students. Even from our class number one, even with those learning curves to today, I have students that are thankful and tell me how valuable the business piece was for them, to help answer questions or to help them decide on when is the best time to open my own business, or, what is my exit strategy? It gives them the opportunity to be able to ask questions and also have an understanding of what's involved in being an entrepreneur. And so students to this day still thank me for, or thank us, I should say, for having the business component piece for them. I express to our students, day one after they graduate, that they are actually entrepreneurs now, right? Actually, they are entrepreneurs the day they enroll in school. But knowing this, I feel like it's our obligation to make sure that our students are prepared for the business of barbering, because that has a tendency to be overlooked or taken for granted. And it's extremely important because it's essential for their success when they get into the profession. And that really actually applies to any skilled trade, is that their entrepreneurship starts day one after you finish that training. And we want to make sure that students are successful when they get out and start these businesses and get out and set out these new ventures. So I cannot thank Miss Katie Gills enough for everything she has done for our program. And she knows that she has already been honored and has an honorary barbering degree from our barbering program for all of the, her expertise, her insight, and we cannot thank her enough, and for her legacy that she had left behind in our barber program.
Well, I'm so grateful to Mr. Graham. I didn't tell him to use all my name all those times, but we just recently graduated the 2021 barber school class. So I think I'm fresh on his brain. What he didn't tell you is that he also had a career as the barbershop inspector for the state of North Carolina. So he would drive around and inspect barbershops and decide which ones got to stay open, which ones closed. So he had a chance to see a lot of failure out there. And I think that really touched his heart, that he saw people who with just a little bit of training could actually make a go of this business. You know, as educators, we want to teach our students how to think, how to do the thing, but we also need to teach them how to run the business of doing the thing. So I'm grateful that Mr. Graham had that vision, but it's not just something like barber school, something that's a skilled trade, that's hands-on, where entrepreneurship infusion into the classroom would make a difference. It really would make a difference with every type of curriculum. Now, so that was the perspective from somebody who said to his students, you're going to get this training whether you want it or not. And he was also very kind. We did have a couple of people at the beginning of the 10-week session who said, why are you telling me this? I just want to learn how to cut hair. And we just had to tell them, look, trust us. You'll be grateful. You'll thank us at the end. And they did. Because people who don't realize that they're going to eat what they kill, that it is up to them to create their own opportunity, sometimes don't recognize what they need. But then there are others who've been out there fighting the good fight, surviving on their own, running a business, who look up and say, you know what? I think if I got a little bit more education and training, I think I could be better at this. I think there's something I need to learn. We had one of our students who I asked him why. He had a very successful business too, and he had an ice cream store. Why are you coming? You've been supporting your family for years. He said, I feel the way you feel on Christmas morning when you put the toy together and you look down and there are 3 screws still laying on the carpet. It looks fine from the outside, but you know you missed something. So we're going to hear next from someone who was already a successful entrepreneur, already supporting his family, who chose to come and spend 10 weeks and 30 hours with getting some entrepreneurship training. Oh, by the way, and it came with homework. So I'd like to welcome Reggie Winston, who is the founder and owner of the Barber Shop that now has 2 locations. Reggie, thank you for taking time. I see you out there running your business. I see everything going on behind you right now. So you're right there in the shop.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Miss Katie. Yes, I'm here at the barber shop. As most entrepreneurs know, you're constantly in the business and trying to work on the business. But yes, you are extremely right. You're absolutely right. I was already in business, running a business, but I always felt like there was something missing and some things I wasn't just quite understanding as a operator and owner of my barbershop. Going to the lunch program that was provided by Wake Tech, it really helped open up my mind to some more things I was absolutely missing out in my barbershop business. My barbershop business is not the traditional barbershop where a barber pays booth rent, but we actually do hourly and commission. And it was just a lot of things that I didn't learn working in someone else's shop that I had to figure out on my own. But once I got with some mentors that was provided through the lunch program, it really helped transform my business. It allowed us to expand. After completing the launch program, we were able to expand from 1 barbershop to 2 barbershops.
So you had you went through the class and you had to do homework. How did you feel about that homework?
The homework was actually, it was needed. It made me stop. It made me really rethink my business and the strategy. Doing the homework also allowed me to come up with a business plan that made sense. It was simple to understand, simple to share with other people. In the past, you come with all these business ideas, you don't know how to package it. So the homework helped create a better package of what my business is.
What I'm hearing is that you did it, you appreciate it, but you didn't love it while you were doing it.
Didn't love it, but it was necessary.
It was necessary. So what parts of the training did you find most beneficial?
Oh my gosh, like I said, reforming that business plan was amazing. And really getting data about our business and how well it really is doing, understanding profit and loss statements and balance sheets, and understanding where to get funding from, how to be attractive for funding when it's time to get a loan. and just the overall the camaraderie of networking with other people. Here in the barber industry, you're kind of just in your barber shop and you're networking with your customers, but not all of them are entrepreneurs. We were able to be in a class with so many other people who could actually benefit by working together, some graphic design, or someone that might do food and catering. We might host an event and we can hire or reach into our class and find someone that's doing that type of work that we need to make our business even better.
That community element, and that's why the community college is a great higher education institution to deliver that, because of our deep connection to the community. You
Yes,
mentioned
ma'am.
something about mentors. One of the things about delivering entrepreneurship training outside of the classroom in a real work environment is you do have the opportunity to connect people with other professionals who are also out there working that can benefit, help them. How did things work out with your mentor?
Oh, wonderful. Like I said, we were able to expand. Then we hit the pandemic. I was able to kind of have the knowledge on how to navigate this pandemic. And I've already established some connections on things and resources I can use to help get us through this pandemic. Even through the pandemic, we were able to add more staff and get new customers and gain new clients and just really evolve with the time and the situations that we're going on through this pandemic. So going through lunch program and having those mentors have been vital. Or if let's talk about the dark times too, when you don't know what's going to happen, when you're afraid and not sure what to do next, having those mentors who probably already been through some of these situations to help calm you down and remind you what the goal is another great thing as well.
So what is there some advice you would give other professionals and experienced entrepreneurs who may be thinking, do I want to go back to some higher ed institution like the community college and get some training? What advice would you give them?
Do it. Don't just stop thinking about it. Just go ahead and get it done. Reach out to someone. Hopefully y'all can find someone as amazing as Miss Katie Gales. But hopefully there's another Katie Gales in your state, but just do it. Just do it. There's so many free resources out there. So many people who are passionate about entrepreneurship, who would give you everything that they have in their tool bag, not because they're depending on you to be successful, but just because they want you to be successful. A lot of times we are in relationships or have relationships with people who need us. These mentors and these free programs and the things that these community colleges provide, they just want to see you win, because when you win, we all win.
Thank you so much, Reggie. I appreciate you taking time from your business to visit with us. He mentioned the launch program a couple of times. It is one way at Wake Tech that we were able to deliver training to entrepreneurial professionals out there, not in the classroom, in the evenings, in a cadence that worked for somebody who was building a business or working a job full time. And Mr. Graham mentioned that I'm an honorary barber. I do have a barber jacket, but don't let me cut your hair. But that jacket really came in handy when I leveraged one of NACY's real benefits. A couple of years ago, I was able to compete in a pitch competition sponsored by the Radcliffe Foundation for skilled trades. And I thought that barbershops and cosmetologists and natural hair practitioners were skilled trades, men and women. And I pitched, I competed, I got some money, and it allowed me to fund the training, the pilots of the real 10-week, 20-hour session Mr. Graham mentioned, but also allowed me to pilot what is now going to be an annual event at Wake Tech called the annual, and we just had our second annual Barber and Cosmetology Business Summit, because so many professionals out there don't have the basics. And this was one way that we could get them the basics at the beginning of every year. So I'm grateful to the Radcliffe Foundation. Thank you, Reggie, for being with us. There are a lot of benefits available to community colleges, to HBCUs and other organizations from being a part of NACY. And I just want to say, if you're in a position where you're trying to figure out how or if you can infuse entrepreneurship into existing curriculum, if you're a NACY member, just email me and I'll be happy to set up a strategy session for you. If you're not a NACY member, join, and then you'll be able to set up a strategy session with me. But thank you so much to National Entrepreneurship Week team for letting us be a part of your schedule for this week. And I will hand things back to Erica.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everybody who joined us today that shared some of their perspective on entrepreneurship education. We're so grateful. So just to kind of follow up, Kitty, you did mention that pitch for the trades, and I do want to just plug out there that we have an informational webinar coming up in March, and that's where you can learn more about pitch for the trades. There's an opportunity for up to $50,000 of funding for your trades program. So do check that out at nacy.com. I also want to share about our conferences that we have coming up in the spring and in the fall. So Makeshift is our annual Makerspace Ecosystem Summit. That is for makers and makerspaces, whether you have no idea what a makerspace is, all the way up to you have one and you want to figure out what's next, how to take it to the next level. That's happening in April. And then in the fall, we have our annual conference. This year is our 20th anniversary. And so we are planning a big celebration to celebrate all the work that we have done as a nation focused on community college entrepreneurship, but then also looking forward and kind of fueling the future. What does that look like? And so do check out both of those. You can get more information at nacy.com/events. Now, as we close up the day, I do encourage you to join us tomorrow. The NACY event tomorrow is Business Tools and Resources. And so we'll talk about how to upskill, reskill, and then fostering an environment that encourages collaboration. I know there are a handful of other events happening within the National Entrepreneurship Week ecosystem, but I do encourage you to join us for that to hear from both IBM and Verizon. So with that, friends, I hope that you have a great afternoon. Again, thank you to those that joined us as speakers and panelists. And Amber, I will turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. This has just been a fantastic panel, and we love community colleges. I went to a community college, so it's great to see community colleges uplifted as part of that entrepreneurship education ecosystem. Highly encourage everyone to check them out. We are going to have a quick transition period to our third panel of the day, starting at 3 p.m. with EntreEd, which is the Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education and represents the K-12 component of this pipeline. So if you haven't already, go ahead and visit the National Eship Week site to register for that. We hope to see you at 3 o'clock, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And then we're going to end the day actually at 4 o'clock with a beyond the formal classroom conversation. So appreciate everyone for joining. Hope you see you in the next session. And thank you, as always, for your support of National Entrepreneurship Week. And thank you, NACY, for this incredible panel and for moderating and kind of leading us through your supports today.
Thank you so much.